Welcome to episode 46 of the How to Japanese podcast. We made it. We made it, y'all. Happy holidays. It's December. It's the time of the year when people start wrapping things up, including all of our favorite apps, music apps, game apps. And in the course of looking through all these, I came to the kind of painful realization that I've played over 600 hours of video games this year. I think that's probably by far the most number of hours I've spent on gaming ever, I want to say. There might have been a year when I was younger when I was playing that much, but to be honest, I don't think so. I was a gamer, but not a kind of lifestyle gamer, one who was playing every day. And now that's something that I more or less am doing. But 600 hours, that's up there, I think, in terms of the median number of hours people play video games. It's 25 whole days. And at first the idea kind of depressed me because that's like almost a full month, and you have to start wondering, okay, what else could I have been doing with this time? Reading, writing, traveling, anything. Everyone, I think, has lots of different priorities. I'm no different. And so that was one of the first thoughts I had. But then I started to kind of rethink that negative approach. And I realized I have been doing other things. I managed to do that while playing 600 hours of video games. And that's includes 15,000 words for the newsletter this year, 8,000 words for the blog, which includes another year of Murakami Fest posts. Another 12 hours of podcasts, including the Murakami series of podcasts where I looked at his whole career and then reviewed his latest novel that came out in Japanese before it has even been translated, and then wrote a 9,000 word review of that novel, which is over on medium.com, and Medium tells me it takes 27 minutes to read. I took a look through it again yesterday, and I think it still holds up. It still kind of captures what I wanted to say about the novel, which is unfortunately nothing very good. The BBC, in their initial reporting on that novel, had predicted that the translation was going to be, not predicted, I should say, reported that the novel was going to be released in English this year. And I think it was obvious at the time that wasn't going to happen. And it's even more obvious now on December 21st, 2023, that The City and Its Uncertain Walls will not be published in English in 2023. But my main point in getting to all of this is that we can have it all. Sometimes when life gets busy, it really feels like you're making choices. You come home and you have to choose whether you're going to do laundry, wash the dishes, cook dinner, go shopping, or are you going to sit and read that book? Are you going to sit and play that game? Are you going to sit and study that language? And I think often in language study is low on the priority list, unfortunately. It's why we can't keep our resolutions. It's why we have trouble finishing projects that we start. It's why we get stuck on the plateau of different language studies. And I think it's kind of a false idea. We can't have it all. You just need to kind of be brutal about some of the decisions that you are making and how you are using your time. And that's kind of what I wrote about in the newsletter this month, which is over on Substack, if you're not subscribed there already. I wrote about this phrase,そうこうしているうちに. そうこうしているうちに. And I'll get to how I discovered this phrase. But my initial question is, how do we prioritize studying a language, when we're spending 6 hours a day on chores, 8 hours a day at work, and ideally 8 hours a day sleeping? That leaves 2 hours for doing something else. And this 6 hours of chores stats comes from an article that a coworker shared with me. And I was talking with some friends about it, and kind of at first I was really doubtful. I was like, 6 hours seems like a lot every day for chores. Until one of the friends kind of counted everything that you have to do, all the chores that you have to do, and sure enough, it added up to 6. I think that didn't even include childcare, by the way. And if you have kids, obviously that's going to be a lot more. Um, in my case, though, I do feel like I do less than that. And I think part of it is because I keep my cooking and eating as simple as possible. This was true in the US. It's gotten easier in Japan. I think I'm fortunate to live here because, for a couple of reasons. One, it's easy to shop as someone who's single here. The portions are very small. You can buy a quarter of a cabbage. And if actually, I went to the supermarket the other day and they only had half cabbages. And I kind of went up to somebody and I said, "Hey, do y'all have any more quarter cabbages anywhere?" And they said, "Oh, I'll cut this one up for you and I'll bring it right back." And that was a nice little surprise. And so I was able to pay like 79 yen for a quarter of a cabbage rather than a whole cabbage. Whereas in the US, I feel like maybe there would be some places where you could buy half a cabbage, but a quarter cabbage, uh, I think that's pretty rare. So that's fortunate. Also, pre-prepared foods in Japan, very cheap. Um, I do bentos every day of the week, and they cost between 400 to 600 yen, which seems like a reasonable price to pay, especially using the current exchange rate, which is going to put that at like 350 to $5 for a very decent little lunch. And that's something you can do for dinner too, because grocery stores have a great bento selection. The bentos near my office, there's a lot of places that have them, and because there's so many people working, they're a great deal because they can sell them in bulk. But even at the grocery store, there's a lot of different options that are very reasonably priced. But again, this is a strategy that I had in the US too. And what I did was batch cooking. Uh, cook big batches on the weekend, freeze a lot, eat some, and slowly put them away. So if I can do two big batch cooks on a weekend, and then kind of get into the habit of doing one to kind of sustain that, that's going to give me meals in the future so that I can just come straight home, warm something up, and get to language study, get to gaming, get to reading, get to podcasting, you know. And one strategy I used for batch cooking in the US was an Instant Pot, which is an electronic pressure cooker. It's got, other features too. It's got, you can use it as a fermenter. I made yogurt in it. I made natto in it. You can use it as a slow cooker. But the real feature is the pressure cooker, which cooks things really quickly. And I used it for lentils, beans. I made ribs in it once, which came out okay. Um, I cooked my rice in it at home. I didn't have a rice cooker, which, I'm realizing now since acquiring one in Japan that was a mistake. You can do a lot with a rice cooker. That's probably even more convenient than an Instant Pot, especially because they clean so much more easily than an Instant Pot, and they're so much faster because they don't have to pressure up or pressure down. But Instant Pots are great. I can't recommend them highly enough. I paid about $100 for mine on Amazon back in around 2015, but they go on sale pretty regularly. So I wouldn't recommend paying any more than about, $60, $65 from them. And to be honest, I bet you can find a used one really cheaply, which is what I did when I moved to Osaka. I used a website called Jimoty. I believe it's spelled Jimoty, but you can also spell that in katakana Jimoti. And it's a fantastic website where people are either trying to give things away or sell them really cheaply. And I found one going, I think they wanted 8,000 yen for it. And I asked them if they would take 6,000 yen, and they said sure. And so I had to kind of get on the train on a rainy Saturday morning and walked over to this kind of supermarket center that was like 5 minutes walk from the station. And once I got there, I let the person know that I was getting closer to their house, which was near a convenience store. But when he realized that I was there, and it was raining, he's like, "Oh no, I'll bring it over to the supermarket." And so I waited there, and we made the exchange, and so I was able to kind of like pick up where I left off in the U.S. And the other way that I picked up off where I left off was finding a cheap source of lentils in Japan, which was at the shop called Kobe Spice, which I assume is a Kobe-based store, but they have an outlet here in Osaka, and they sell on Amazon as well. And if you buy direct from the website, they have free shipping for if you buy over 5,000 yen worth of stuff, which will buy you a ton of lentils because everything is really, really cheap. They sell them, you can buy them by the half kilogram, 500 grams or so each, or probably by the kilogram as well. They have a bunch of other options for rice, basmati and jasmine and things like that, but the rice wasn't quite the same quality as the lentils. They have a lot of really good spices as well that are all very affordably priced. So I can't recommend that high enough. And so that got me kind of going in Japan. And so this batch cooking with the occasional picking up something from the supermarket combined with a bunch of other kind of quick and easy recipes that I use and are very kind of standard rotation, not like strict rotation, but I kind of know what I'm able to cook and I stay within that zone to keep things easy. And every now and then I'll cook something extravagant, for Thanksgiving, because I do enjoy the cooking, but for me, it's mostly about doing it efficiently so that I can get to other things. And then one thing that I think is another trick in Japan is just to have rice ready. Because if you have rice ready, you can go to the grocery store and pick up one little entree, whether that's, a little set of karaage or a grilled fish or a korokke, anything like that. And then you keep some veggies on the side. You've got some nori that you can use. You have little packs of instant miso soup. You've got some kombu. You've got kimchi. And all those things together come into a very nice little simple Japanese style meal, I think. So batch cooking and strategic use of Japanese supermarkets is, I think, what gave me the time to do everything I did this year. And I can't recommend doing that enough. And the other thing that's great about batch cooking is that it's multitasking. And so if I'm cooking something in the Instant Pot, I'm cleaning while it's cooking in the Instant Pot. If I'm making something like takikomi gohan, which is, mixed rice, where you put a bunch of chicken, ginger, soy sauce, and rice into a rice cooker and let it cook. And then you come out with a kind of more complex rice that's almost closer to a meal. While that's cooking, I'm cleaning. And so I'm done with cleaning up my prep work once it's cooked. And all I have to really do is put the food away and clean the rice cooker or the Instant Pot. It's a great time to be listening to podcasts. It's a great time to just listen to music and relax, anything like that. So using time efficiently was also, I think, a strategy I used. And one of those you can do is study Japanese while looking for recipes. Use Japanese content creators as inspiration for your recipes, for your cooking. And I introduce 4 different ones in the newsletter this month, 3 from TikTok and 1 from YouTube. I think actually the 4th she tried to get on TikTok, but hasn't quite made the shift yet. So the first one is Koni. Her name is Koni. Her username is Koni underscore Gohan, and that's Koni with a C, C-O-N-I underscore Gohan on TikTok. She has great Japanese, very clean, slightly casual, leans toward the casual side, very funny, and cooks very straightforward meals. So I would recommend her for both language practice and the cooking. It's definitely not just a kind of visual TikTok, which a lot of these recipe creators are. I would say in the US and other countries, they're trying to create a visual experience with high quality video footage, recipes that are maybe not the easiest to make, but turn out more Instagrammable. Whereas Koni, I think, is more straightforward in her approach, is looking for easy recipes. The one that I link in the newsletter is she makes a takikomi gohan. So it's this nice little mushroom or something, I can't remember exactly what, in the rice. She makes miso soup, which literally she just kind of puts all this stuff in a pot and heats it up while she's prepping everything else. And then konya tofu or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's an eggplant with fried tofu on top. And she takes the shortcut of microwaving the eggplant rather than frying it because she said she can't be asked really. So she uh, pan fries the tofu that goes on top of that. And then she's got a pickled little quick pickle, cucumber, and kombu dish. And these all come together, I would say, probably in about an hour. And you've got all a really nice little balanced meal. So her Japanese is great. On the even more casual side of the language spectrum is Risa is her name. Her username is Fujiko-chan, Fujiko with a C. So Fujico Chan, Chan, Fujiko-chan. She's a very casual and slangy Okinawan chef who tells really funny stories while cooking. So she kind of tends to give less of the recipe details than Koni, but she will describe the techniques. One of her most recent ones is how to decorate a Christmas cake, and she's got this great little strategy to turn strawberries into little Santa Claus. And but generally, she's kind of telling a story or something, and she's talking really quickly. So I don't know if there's a way to kind of like slow. I guess it's probably not like a podcast app where you can like slow down the audio, unfortunately. But I think listening over and over again several times, you're gonna have to do that to kind of pick up some of her what she's saying. But I think that is always really good language practice. So check hers out. And then the other TikTok recipe creator is P Kichi, and his handle is Pikichi desu yo. He's also on Instagram. And I believe that Lisa is as well, and Koni might be as well, to be honest. Pikichi desu yo is his handle. Pikichi desu desuyo. He churns out these kind of like BQ style meals, which have like maybe 3 or 4 little different snacky type items. I haven't made any of his stuff yet, but they're always really tempting, and I want to try to do them at some point. And I feel like I would probably take like 1 or 2 things from several different videos and pick the easiest ones. Like the one that really sticks out to me is he gets some camembert, these sliced camembert that you see in Japan a lot, and he wraps them in gyoza and then pan fries them. And I was like, man, that seems like a super easy little thing that you could add to a meal, and it would in like 5 minutes, and it would be super tasty. Or even if you just needed like a snack for a movie or something. So he's also great. His Japanese, I would say, is more recipe focused, less kind of story oriented, but still, you're going to pick up things here and there. And then finally, the one YouTube recipe creator that I introduce is Katchanaru. Katchanaru is just a massive YouTube machine. She has, I think probably over 1.5 million subscribers, if not more than that. She puts up video after video after video, like every day. She's filming in what clearly looks like a very kind of basic standard Japanese house. She's using very basic standard Japanese cooking equipment and putting together a huge range of different recipes. The one recipe of hers that I introduced and that I really remember is akamiso oden. And I don't have a full-on nabe and was living in an apartment with propane gas, which was a little expensive and kind of annoying to kind of get something as large as a nabe going. So I use my Instant Pot to cook it, and which I think was a good call because I was able to pressure cook the really hardcore stuff like the daikon and the chicken, and then add the soft stuff like the tofu later on and let it just kind of simmer for a little while. And that was also a really easy little meal combined with some rice. But Katchan is also excellent language study just because she's so routinized. Every video has the same pattern. She starts off with her self-introduction. She teaches the recipe. She eats the recipe and takes a bite and gives some comments about it at the end. And so you're going to get repetitions with different phrases that will start to stick in your mind as you watch her videos. Um, and I can't recommend her highly enough. I think that the only reason I haven't been watching more of that is because I've just been using TikTok more than YouTube. It's kind of one of my go-to social media vices these days, unfortunately. And so, in the course of watching these and using them as kind of a language study slash recipe resource center, I was watching one of Koni's videos that I link in the newsletter, and this Japanese phrase kind of like stuck in my mind, and that is "そうこうしているうちに." And the way that she uses it is this phrase, そうこうしているうちに炊き込みご飯が出来上がりました. I'll read that one more time. そうこうしているうちに炊き込みご飯が出来上がりました. This is a sentence she uses to describe how the rice finishes cooking while she's working on all the other dishes. So uchi ni is, a very straightforward phrase that means while something is happening during a certain time. And, one of the most typical phrases that you learn early in your studies is atakai uchi ni, or something like that, while something is warm, while something is hot. And here, though, uchi ni is modified by this verb, そうこうしているうちに. そうこうしているうちに. And I knew what it meant, and I was just very curious about how else would you look up this phrase, right? These TikTok and YouTube are very visual media. They do have pretty good subtitling features, especially Katchana. Her videos are all subtitled really, really well, which is great for language study, and I believe even translated these days. But TikTok has a little bit here and there, I would say. It encourages people to subtitle, but neither YouTube nor TikTok are kind of good for searching for text. Like if you wanted to find out the meaning of Souko Shiteiru Uchi ni, you'd end up needing to resort to a more text-based source. And obviously one of those we could use a dictionary. And if you look it up, it's got, some definitions, and it says いろいろな物事にかかずらっている間に or 何やかやと忙しくしているうちに. So basically doing lots of different things or being very busy all at once. And that kind of gets to, I think, that definitely helps. But the really ideal way, I think, to kind of track down usage is just to get a ton of different example sentences and see how they're being used. Find some kind of language corpora, some set of example sentences out in the wild, and triangulate the meaning based on that. And so how do you do that? You can obviously use a Google search engine, but this is going more and more these days. It's not a great way to find natural use of the language. You end up with a lot of articles on websites that are kind of curated definitions, especially if you're looking for keigo. And I'd say they're somewhat useful if you're looking for keigo or something like that. But more valuable is seeing actual people really use a language with intention. And so social media is one of those places, these huge collection of text that's out there that exists that we can access and use to kind of triangulate meaning of phrases. And so that's the other thing I did with the newsletter this month is I took a look at how are the text-based social media in Japanese these days. And the results were grim for Mastodon and Instagram. The searches returned no results when I searched for Souko Shiteiru Uchi ni in quotation marks. Maybe I'm doing something wrong on Mastodon. I feel like there must be some way to search Mastodon text. Let me know if there is. I was just searching through the web app, to be honest, and I'm on the .jp instance. Instagram I don't know why it had no hits, to be honest. And I think you'll find that surprising a little bit later when I tell you about Facebook. But uh, Blue Sky initially was also a pretty bad offender when I first started writing this newsletter early this month, late last month. There were no results at all. Or actually, no, there were results, but it was totally random. It just seemed like a bunch of random skeets, I believe they're called. Unfortunately, that's not my terminology. But if you Google, that's apparently what they're called. But they're random. And then when I searched again um, this past week, the results were totally different. It was actually getting good results. And so Blue Sky, I would say, is on the up in terms of being a body of text that can be accessed and used to see how people are using language. Twitter is and has been the gold standard. It's very reliable search, especially if you mark something off in quotes. It will bold text the search term in the tweets that are the results, so it makes it really easy to kind of pick out what you're looking for. The results are almost inevitably text heavy, which I think is mostly a good thing because it forces you to use the language, to read the language, which is what you're trying to do in this case. You're trying to figure out how it's being used, what's happening, who's using the language, why, and you need to kind of fill in all of those. And so I found a bunch of tweets with the usage to kind of see how people were using it. And here's what I found. Here's one example. そうこうしているうちにワイヤレスイヤホンの出荷連絡が来た。そうこうしているうちにワイヤレスイヤホンの出荷連絡が来た。So as I was doing this and that, the notification for the shipment of my wireless headphones came. Right? So that you get a very clear picture. I was doing this and that just the way that Connie was with her cooking. I was doing this and that, and the rice finished. I was doing this and that, and this notification came. And then again, here's another one. This is one of my favorites. アドベントカレンダーずっと買おうか悩んでそうこうしているうちにまた12月が来てしまった。This feels almost like a haiku or something, except it's not. I don't think it's syllabically correct, but it really does capture that kind of moment of realization at the end of a year when you're like, crap, it's December. And I'll read that one more time. アドベントカレンダーずっと買おうか悩んでそうこうしているうちにまた12月が来てしまった。Oh, and then at the bottom in katakana they have 今年も買えなかった。So again, そうこうしているうちにまた12月が来てしまった。As I was doing this and that, December came again. And interestingly enough, Twitter's translates そうこうしているうちに as meanwhile, which I don't think is a very good translation. I mean, it does some of the work that そうこうしているうちに is, but as we saw from the dictionary definition, the real kind of sense of そうこうしているうちに is doing multiple things, being busy, that sense of being so busy that you can't even do the predicate of the sentence. Like, that's the one rule I think with そうこうしているうちに is that the second half of the sentence can't be an actively done verb by the person who is doing the そうこうしているing. So if you are the person doing the そうこうしているing, you're so busy doing this and that, literally そう and こう, this, that you can't do that. It has to be something came, 何かが来た, or something が出来上がりました. Something was finished, right? The rice kind of cooked itself, right? Or the 連絡が来た, the notification came. So I think those examples really give an excellent look at how そうこうしているうちに works. It's a great resource. And then as I kind of hinted at with my Instagram comment, surprisingly, Facebook is a really, really good social media to search for text. It turned up a lot of really text heavy results, talking like, you know, posts that are in the hundreds of word level, I would say, at least hundreds of character level, very long form. It turns out up posts with lots of photos. And I don't know if that's, has something to do with the algorithm that Facebook is using for their search, or whether that says something broader about Facebook users in Japan. Um, my sense is that it does say something about Facebook users in Japan. My Facebook in Japan was, I think, initially released in 2008, but didn't really take off right away. It took several years for it to get going. Maybe about 4 years later is when people started to add me as friends. Students I had taught in Japan, the friends that I had known studying abroad, and I think, like in the US, there's been a shift towards older users in the last couple of years. And strangely enough, I was able to follow that a little bit in my last job at a trade association, where many of the members were on Facebook and adding me as friends. And so I'm seeing all these people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s using Facebook as almost a kind of microblogging platform. And I think because of that, it's an excellent place to look for textual examples. You're going to end up getting only public posts, but next time you're looking for a Japanese sentence, and I wouldn't recommend searching for a whole sentence. You want to kind of isolate that chunk. I think I did a podcast about, those quotation marks, and you want to isolate a little piece. But if you search for it, try it next time and see what you come up with, because I think you'll find some interesting examples. And I share a couple of those in the newsletter, so go check that out. And again, we can't talk about Twitter these days with really talking about all the whole controversy surrounding its owner, I think, and the kind of desperate fleeing from the platform. I am sticking around just because I'm determined to outlast the owner. I don't think he's in it for the long run. I am disappointed that the people in power haven't questioned the effects of taking over a media entity this influential. And I just kind of hope that this set of language examples is able to stick around in some form, in one form or the other, that it either gets archived by somebody or stays accessible in a way that doesn't completely deplete it as a way to kind of track down language usage examples. So I didn't talk about all of that in the newsletter this month. That's maybe a little podcast special edition, but I do think, if you can make Twitter a place, if you can make Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever you're using a place for language study that you're doing while you're doing other things. If you're studying Japanese while you're looking for recipes and cooking, if you're studying Japanese while you're cooking by listening to NHK podcasts, we can have everything. Life seems busy. Life is busy. Sometimes it seems impossible to do everything, but you can make it happen. And I have faith in you. That's all I've got for this month. I'm a day away from my New Year's holiday here in Osaka, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's been busy last 6 months, and Oshogatsu, there's nothing like it. I would venture to say nothing like it anywhere in the world. No vacation like it anywhere in the world. Maybe, in my own experience, Thanksgiving in the U.S. was somewhat like it. Maybe New Year's. I don't know. Maybe in New Orleans, maybe the day after Mardi Gras. To be honest, Ash Wednesday. But maybe Thanksgiving when things really shut down. But in Japan, there was grocery stores closed for like 3 straight days at the beginning of January. People really kind of shut down. It's the time of year when things get really calm and quiet, unless you happen to be a comedian who has to be on live television for about 12 to 20 hours within the last 2 or 3 days of the year. And there's nothing better than it. I really had a great time last year, and am looking forward to this year as well. I hope that you're able to find some open space, both physically and mentally, wherever you happen to be. The kind of mental and physical space that gives you the focus to do some serious language study, even if that just happens to be playing a video game in Japanese. And on that note, I'll see you in 2024.